What's up, this is Skylar with VidArmy. Today we're gonna go through the Canon 1DX Mark III. A little background on the 1DX, it is basically the highest model of Canon's DSLR line, the top of the line Pro DSLR. Here I have the Mark III and the Mark II, as well as a Canon 70. As you can see, the 1DX is the big Bertha of DSLRs. I don't think I've ever seen a DSLR quite this big. No, this is not a battery pack on the bottom. This is part of the camera, but it does provide a pretty long battery life. And just compare the size of this one to the 70, which is the size of most normal DSLRs. It's like twice as big. Thing's huge. In fact, if you know of a larger DSLR bigger than this beast, comment below. As you can see, the body of the Mark III and the Mark II are pretty much identical. The button layouts are exactly the same, and they're the same size as well. The only thing with the body that I've noticed is that the Mark III is actually a little bit lighter. So when you're running glide cam for a long time, as we are on a lot of our shoots, it is a little bit nicer for that. You can customize those buttons to different autofocus modes and things like that. The Mark III uses the same battery as the Mark II. Slides in the side like this. But the Mark III uses an entirely new memory card. They call it the CF Express, and it looks like this. These brand new CF Express cards have a read speed of up to 1.7 gigabytes and a write speed of 1.5 gigabytes. These beastly cards allow for Canon to record in higher bit rates at a higher setting and for you to dump footage faster than ever. I want to look at these and compare the write speed of this card to the C Fast card that Canon was going with before. The C Fast card, compatible with the Mark II, looks like it has a 515 megabyte per second reading on there. So this new CF Express is going to be up to 3 times faster than that one, reading and writing. These new memory cards allow for one of the Mark III's most notable functions, the 5.5K RAW recording. These memory cards are pricey though, running at $600 for a 512 gig card and $150 for this 64 gig card. That's over twice as much as the last C-Fast card, but for 3 times the performance. This new card allows the Mark III's new most notable recording feature, the 5.5K RAW video recording, at up to 60 frames drop rate. All right, now just going into the camera's menu, let's take a look at the movie recording quality settings. Here, if we punch in, you can see how many different recording settings available. If you compare these settings to the Mark II, you can see there's a lot more recording settings on here, which ranges from our 5.5K 60 frame RAW format all the way down to our 1080 30 frame drop rate IPB. Like the Mark II, the camera can record 120 frame drop rate, but only in the 1080 setting. I was hoping that we'd be able to do that in 4K in this camera, but it's still only available in the 1080 setting. We have 4K, 4K UHD, interlaced formats, IPB formats. One other notable thing about this camera is that it records 4K 60 in full frame. The Mark II, once you punched into 60 at 4K, would crop 1.6, but now this will keep all of your data in a full frame format in 4K 60. I think it's awesome that they introduced the 5.5K RAW setting as well as 4K RAW recording, because when you compare a camera of this price to something like the Pocket Cinema 6K that can do the same type of recording, clearly without all the buttons and whistles and autofocus capabilities that this camera has, but I still feel like for at this price, it should have RAW recording formats and at least a 5.5K. Now, a big distinguishing factor between this and something on a price range a lot lower like the Pocket Cinema 6K is this camera's amazing autofocus capabilities. If we go into the autofocus settings, we can select the autofocus method. It has tracking, spot autofocus, 1-point autofocus, expanded autofocus area, expanded audio focus area around a subject, zone autofocus, larger zone vertical autofocus, and a horizontal zone autofocus. This first tracking feature has been available on the Mark II as well, but I've noticed on this camera that it can track smaller spots on a subject a lot quicker, and it tracks that spot super well. So if I'm filming somebody's face and they're running with a basketball or something, it will stay tracked to their face as long as the subject doesn't pass in front. Even if a subject does pass in front, it'll gather its autofocus again to that subject after you can once again see it in the image. Also, when you're recording manual focus, it'll give you outlines of the subject that is in focus, and you can change the color of those outlines as well. Once you've selected an autofocus method, you can then punch in to select which case you would like your autofocus to function as. This changes how the camera prioritizes what to focus on and how fast it will rack focus from one subject to another, and things like that. So we've got our 4K 60 full frame, we've got our 5.5K RAW recording formats, and our amazing autofocus capabilities. Let's get into my last favorite feature on this camera that I think should have been there in the Mark II in the first place. Under your movie recording settings, you'll notice there is a Canon log setting. This means that Canon has introduced to this camera its own flat profile recording setting to capture high dynamic range footage. By turning this function on, you maximize the amount of data captured through the camera in your whites and darks. The values between white and black will be increased to an entire 12 stops while shooting in Canon log. Here's a side-by-side comparison of Canon log footage compared to its normal color setting. Shooting in preset color settings will allow your footage to look great out of camera, but if you want the ability to creatively color grade and give even more amazing color to your picture, then you're going to want to shoot in C-Log and you'll have all of that color grading data capability. That's everything I've loved so far about the 1DX Mark III. A couple of things that I wasn't as happy with are there aren't as many 24 frame settings available. It prefers the drop frame rate and doesn't allow you to enable 24 frames in any 1080 setting, but it does have 24 frame rate for 4K and 4K UHD. I often like to shoot in this flat 24 frame non-drop rate setting for syncing to audio coming out of my Zoom recorder. Without this, it just adds one quick step. Overall, it's been a great camera and we're super happy with it here at VidArmy. That's it for the Canon 1DX Mark III review. Comment anything I missed and subscribe to VidArmy, monthly video subscriptions for just $4.99.